it's going to be at the cost of my desires and my whims, just for the sake of helping other people in the hopes that it'll help future generations. But you have to be a hopeful person, and being a hopeful person, being someone who has that sort of righteous value in you, is a hard thing to deal with. That's why in the Christian narrative, Jesus Christ was the sacrifice, even though he was being the perfect person, God and man in one.
I tend to think of it as though consciousness is there's a deep and capital T truth embedded in the state of consciousness, and that consciousness is the only thing that's definitely not an illusion.
God, and even the idea of God, has such an impact that it simply surpasses any suppressant for anxiety that we can have. Even with medication, as much as antidepressants may help, God is the North Star. He is the compass that orients us towards the ultimate good.
The fall is the source of growth. It can be physically uncomfortable when you're in a state of living in the depths, but it's from the depths that the growth occurs and transformation occurs.
Greetings, fellow contestants, and welcome once again to Dragon Slayers, another episode back again for episode number 3. So here we go. Today, joining us is Jared, Manz and Niko Soto for this. So here we go. Game 3, Personality and its Transformations. So, we're going to spin the wheel here and determine who's going to go first. Here we go. And so we're landed on Niko. All right. Congratulations, Niko.
Good luck, Niko.
You get to pick first.
Thank you.
Which one of these 5 topics would you like to go with?
Let's go with entropy, number 3.
Entropy. Wonderful, wonderful choice. And the question is, who came up with the theory that anxiety emerges as a consequence of the manifestation of entropy, but also that positive emotion is a marker of reduced entropy? A. Carl Friston, B. Carl Rogers, C. Carl Jung, or D. Mircea Eliade?
I'm going to go with A. Carl Friston.
A. Carl Friston. Locked in the answer?
Yes.
And the answer is... Congratulations! You had it correct, Niko. And with that, you started off strong with plus 3 points. Very, very well. Okay, here we go, Jared. You're gonna have to stay on your toes because Niko, it seems like he had this he did a very good studying on this one. What are you gonna go with, Jared?
I'm gonna go with the shamanic vocation.
The shamanic vocation. Here we go. And the question is, what are the 3 characteristics of someone who would have engaged in the shamanic vocation according to Peterson? A. A spontaneous vocation, conscientiousness, and extraversion. B. A spontaneous vocation, psychedelics use, high neuroticism and wisdom. C. A spontaneous vocation, hereditary transmission and personal quest. Or D. A spontaneous vocation, psychedelics use, and on the verge of mental illness.
I'm a little bit confused by the question, but I'm gonna go with C.
C. Interesting. Okay. Interesting that you. Okay. Well, let's just take a look at the answer. Is the answer correct? And you're right, absolutely right. So what the question was trying to imply is that so Peterson has these sort of like characteristics of what a shaman usually would have to have in order to follow that vocation. So one of them was being high in trade openness, or high in being very open to experience, which is kind of like a spontaneity. A second one would have been a hereditary transmission that he would have inherited from his ancestors, and it would be passed through generations. And the third one, that he would be on a personal quest to find, meaning, or to find a way to guide his or her tribe. So that's wonderfully correct. And so it's so far very, very close. Let's see what Nico responds with. What are you going to go with now, Nico?
I'm going to go with number 1, personality model.
Number 1, personality model. And the question is, what are the fields of studies which Peterson draws from to develop his psychological model of personality? A. The psychoanalytic tradition, physiological psychology, Skinner's behaviorism and Nietzschean thought. B. Christianity, the psychoanalytic tradition, psychedelic interventions and postmodern thought. C. Jungian psychology, Rogerian psychology, Christianity, functionalism and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Or D. Religious and mythological conceptualizations, the psychoanalytic tradition, existential and phenomenological philosophy, the humanist tradition, and the integration of psychometrics.
I'm going to go with option D.
Option D. Are you sure?
I am sure.
Absolutely. We're gonna lock in option D, and the answer is correct. Man, what a contestant! These contestants are sharp today. They have definitely sharpened their swords. Absolutely. Now, Jared, what are you going to respond with? What is your choice?
Let's go for psychedelics.
Psychedelics. Here we go. And so, the question is, what did the pioneering work of Roland Griffith has shown about the use of psychedelics in terminally ill patients? A. A way to induce heaven-like feelings. B. Reduced death anxiety. C. Increased probability of revelation. D. An increase in the anxiety but overall better performance in tests due to the substance making them hypervigilant.
I'm going to go with B, reduced death anxiety.
Wow. And the answer is absolutely correct, Jared. I feel like I have made these questions way too easy for you folk. You're gonna be definitely some great knights to be able to take on the dragon, and also to be able to follow along throughout the whole tournament. It's definitely some contestants to take a look on. So now, Nico, because you started, and because obviously we have an even number of competitors, you, by luck, has gotten the final answer, the final question, which would be Eliade's school. The question is, why does thinkers such as literary critic Camille Paglia and Jordan Peterson think that Eliade's work could have yielded an exit out of the consequences that postmodernism brought forward? A. Because materialism has made people too focused on exploring the physical world rather than exploring the psyche. B. Because the repercussions of postmodernism are the belief that there is no uniting meta-narrative that gives meaning to subjective experiences, while the investigation into shamanism and ancient religious ideas brought by researchers such as Eliade suggests that there is a social and psychological narrative which is conceived as the me. C. Because the implications of Hegel's philosophy has brought us to think of God as an evolving creature. Or D. Because postmodern thought provided an escape from religious dogma and tyranny.
I'm going to go with option B.
Option B. And the answer is correct. Man, what a beating the dragon is about to take with you guys. Absolutely. All right, so it's some time for some good old sparring. So here's how it goes. There's going to be three themes that you get to pick from. The theme is just a general idea. It won't give you like much of a sense of what the statement is gonna be, but you get to pick according to that. Because Nico is on the lead, Jared gets to pick first. And so the three topics that you get to pick from: personality, shamanism, and entropy. Which one would you like to go with?
Oh, let's go for personality.
Personality, absolutely. Here we go. Personality, as understood by Peterson's model, could be interpreted to be the soul's journey toward theosis, because it suggests the subject is something, but it is also becoming something. Would you like to go for or against this statement?
Oh, good question. I'll go for this statement.
For this statement, absolutely. Give me just 1 second. I'm gonna call in the dragon right now.
You picked a good one, Jared.
I don't know what we do now. I'll have to ask him again.
I'm terrified because I don't know how I'm going to argue against it. Assuming I do, but...
Yeah, well, that's what I don't know, is if you have to take the other side now.
This is going to be fun, though. I do love playing the devil's advocate, so this is going to be a challenge for sure.
Here we go, guys. So, Jared, show me what you got. How are you going to defend this?
Okay, so how long do I have?
You have however long you need. Good sir. There's no rush on this.
That's a scary dragon. Okay. Well, I mean, so what does it mean to be human? There is the state that we're in this moment, in this conscious experience, and and in this moment, you could reflect our personality back to us. You could evaluate us according to the Big Five personality type. But then, of course, we are also in pursuit of something and dynamically changing as a result of that. And it's the dynamic aspect that Peterson is referring to, that as we pursue goals, and it's reflected in, for example, the way dopamine is produced when we're in the pursuit of a meaningful goal to ourselves. And in that pursuit, we have to overcome challenges. And it's the overcoming of those challenges in the pursuit of that ultimate goal that rewards us biologically. In order to achieve new goals in life, you have to transform. You have to be able to adapt, learn, and adjust your approach. And that's how we develop and grow as individuals. And so it is through that method that I would say you have a good case that we are not just what we are, but we are also what we are becoming.
I see. But what is interesting about this statement is that it relates to a spiritual type of realm. It relates to a journey in which there is a soul. What would you say about this concept of the soul? Because I hear what you're saying, but from a biological and evolutionary standpoint. But what about defending the side of the soul? What would you say about that? This part of the statement.
Well, the idea of the soul. So is it something that transcends time itself? Is it a representation of the entity that's transforming from initial state to final state? Does it survive the transformation? And is it a reflection of the transformed self over time?
Okay, so the soul, you're trying to portray that it's not just something that we can conceive of the mind, but it's just more something like the essence of something, of someone transforming over time and transcending this concept of just this dualism between mind and body, but actually the essence of somebody just transforming as it moves forward. Is that how I can understand your position properly?
Yeah, I think that's well put. I like it.
Perfect. Wonderful. And what about then, wouldn't you say that perhaps this just could be evolutionarily, materially also what is happening? We obviously always have to be fitted to our environment. Why wouldn't we be also adapting ourselves as challenges emerge? Why would we have to have this notion of the soul to be able to understand it in this sense? Something that is transcendent in that way. Why couldn't we just explain it as fittedness to the environment then?
Yeah, so I think environment potentially comes. I tend to think of it as though consciousness is there's a deep and capital T truth embedded in the state of consciousness, and that consciousness is the only thing that's definitely not an illusion. And so if you follow a cause and effect from that, it's the conscious experience itself that I think is most grounded to whatever the essence of origination is, more so than the biological adaptations that we have as biological creatures, which is say a physical manifestation. But even our interpretation of our biological selves sits downstream of our conscious experience. And so I see it more in that sense, that we are likely evolved biological material creatures, but to the extent that we don't understand things like quantum effects, dark energy, and dark matter, there's plenty in the material world that hides from us. I think equally the essence of the soul could be hiding in the same domain.
I see. Wonderful. And how does like actually because when we understand personality is also something that we understand it as almost not that changeable. You know, it kind of like persists through time. But then again, yeah, I see it is somewhat changeable. You know, like you can try to adapt it, you can try to like mold it a little bit. But in a way, we have this sense of that my personality is something that is just restrained and something that is just I am born with, and then I am given from the very beginning, and then I just kind of like go through my whole existence trying to struggle and like learn how it relates to my own reality. How would you say then? Why is it that it's if it's something that it's persistent through time? How is it that it's transforming as well? Isn't that like a little bit paradoxical?
Yeah, so the stability of personality types. So first of all, I'd say that from what we know about personality, it's empirical. So it's monitoring what we have observed in people's behavior over time. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily deeply rooted as, as the laws of physics are, for example. I thought it was interesting when talking about shamanism, the proclivity for highly neurotic and highly open people to go through a shamanic transformation. I think that's interesting. So it could suggest then that there's a biological implication, and then there's an experience-based implication, and possibly some other element. I mean, you can't rule that out, but at minimum, if you take there being a genetic factor and an experience-based factor, that can determine, let's say, the extent to which you might expect to be able to transform personality based on the historical empirical evidence. That's sort of how I would perceive it. And then I imagine that the ability to continue to transform personality as time progresses continues to be a function of openness and neuroticism. So if you continue to lean into, say, creativity, throughout your life, you may be able to initiate more rapid transformation in yourself.
So in a sense, your transformation could be understand something as talents that you've been given so that you can make the most out of them throughout your life. Is that what I am understanding correctly? So that then you can also bear the what would you say?
I would call them inclinations. I wouldn't necessarily view them as advantages or disadvantages necessarily, although there are probably some that are more comfortable to live with than others. But you could look at them as leveraging your tendencies or inclinations. If you're extremely low in openness, for example, I imagine you would have a more stable personality over time, and learning to understand that and leverage the strengths associated with that personality might be a way to take advantage.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh man, Jared, you really got me this time, but I'm gonna get you next time for sure. That was a good sparring, but you're not gonna get away with this always, for sure.
Well done, Jared. Oh man.
Thanks, Niko. So now we know
All
you have to spar
right.
the dragon.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yep.
That
Good luck to you.
was amazing,
man.
Jared. Very,
I
very
need it.
well done. That dragon took a very good beating. Well done, sir. All right. Niko, how would you rate Jared?
I have to say a solid 5, and I'm not even being generous. It's just he was solid in every one of his points and his rebuttals. I can't go any lower.
Amazing, wonderful,
Thank
wonderful.
you, Niko.
And what about you, Jared? How would you rate yourself?
Oh, geez. I'm going to give myself a 4. How about that?
4.
Room for
Absolutely.
improvement. There's
Absolutely.
always room for improvement.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Let's see. It's your turn, Nico. Which topic would you like to choose? You also you can also pick Jared's the one that the topic that Jared picked, if you have a different position or the same one. It depends on however you want to debate it. Obviously, like if you take the same arguments, then it might, it might seem a little bit weird. But if you take a different position, then you can absolutely do so as well.
All right. I'm gonna go different, and I'm gonna go entropy.
Entropy, absolutely. And the statement is: the goal of humanity is to eventually have absolute control of the amount of entropy allowed to exist in all systems. And once we achieve that, perhaps we will have completed the 2 axial orders given to humans by God, which are to bring the kingdom of heaven to earth through their action and subdue and guide creation towards the proper worshipping of God. Would you like to be for or against this statement?
Oh man.
That looks really tough.
Yeah. Doable. I just gotta figure out which side. Okay, let's see. That should be allowed to exist. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna do a coin toss in my head. I'm just gonna go 4. I'm gonna argue in favor of this statement.
Absolutely, absolutely, Nico. Let me just call in the dragon, and we'll see some sparring.
Okay. Ooh. This is terrifying.
I don't recognize this at all. I'm going to be honest.
I think it's like a merge of 2 topics that Jordan Peterson had talked about in that course.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm good at winging stuff, so see how good I am at this.
I'm gonna be absolutely honest with you guys on this one. It might not be precisely entirely like explicitly mentioned by Peterson, something like this, but this is something that I guess you could draw peripherally from his thought. The dragon, myself, decided that it would be something very interesting to talk about in terms of like what entropy entails and what are the implications of understanding entropy as a marker for anxiety, I would say.
I do agree with the
Oh,
dragon.
good luck
It
to
is
you both.
interesting. Thank you.
How would you like to? What would you got, Nico? Show me what you got for this one.
So, okay, yeah. So natural selection even guides us towards a process by which we adapt and we evolve to achieve greater things. So again, like I believe that natural selection and God's design go hand in hand, where we are meant to improve upon ourselves, which is why we have things like the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution. We have these great feats that humanity has accomplished as opposed to normal animals, because we were designed that way, because we were designed to create more efficient processes and to increase our abundance with the little amount that we have. We can do a lot more with a lot less than we were able to do 4,000 years ago. Now we have technology, we have automobiles. Previously metals that were used for stuff like previously we had items such as wired telephones that took up a lot of materials and took up a lot of energy to use at the time. But now currently we have wireless cell phones, we have computers in our pockets, and I would say that because of those examples that we are simply made to create, we're simply made to improve upon the previous generation's feats. That's why we've been able to, send a man to the moon. It's why we were able to create nuclear weapons. It's why we were able to create nuclear energy. And it's because we are creating a lot more with a lot less. A lot of the materials that we have on Earth, previously we didn't know how to utilize them efficiently, but now we've created we've increased their efficiency tenfold, and in the future we're going to be able to do that 10 more times, 10 times even better than we have it now.
Mm. I see. So your argument, allow me if I understand it correctly, it's saying that because there are a lot of things out in the universe that are just waiting for us to grab them and mold them, we are also grabbing the entropy and actually constraining it and giving it a purpose or a goal, so to speak. But what about this, for example, Nico? Um, think about technology. You mentioned this wonderful argument, and this is very, very, very interesting because, in the same sense that technology gives us a lot of wonderful things, and has given us a way of, being able to live healthier life, being able to have much more empowerment, being able to have, access to information and all of these wonderful things. Wouldn't you say that also it creates even more entropy at the same time? It creates also a lot of chaos insofar as these things that we don't understand entirely what it's going to, what the repercussions or the implications of it just appearing out of nowhere into existence. It kind of have it seems like we are always living this type of Frankenstein moment. Like as we continue to create new and new things, we're always being basically what would you say, like persecuted by our own invention, by our own monster.
Though I would agree that it does, as a byproduct, create more entropy, we still have much more innovation than we would from the very beginning. So now, with technology and social media, we have a lot of people dealing with cyberbullying and depression, the likes of which that we haven't seen in previous times when we didn't have any cell phones, when we didn't have communication with people on the other side of the world, with millions of people that we could just send a humiliating video to, and then just get sent millions and millions of death threats or mean comments or anything like that. So while we have negative effects towards advancements in technology, such as, again, cyberbullying and depression, mental illness, we also have new methods of dealing with these new types of entropies. Again, now with cyberbullying, we create PSAs where people can understand how to either stop the hate or just to learn how to turn off the computer, how to manage their time on the computer. Previously we dealt with things such as iPad kids, where they were just locked to their screen, and now we have an understanding that it's bad. We need to have limited screen time for these children, and on top of that, so because we learn from our mistakes of allowing children to have technological abuse as an addiction, we now also have the ability to moderate within ourselves and to understand, okay, too much of this, too much of a good thing can still be a bad thing. So as we're advancing ourselves through life and the generations, we're also learning how to balance the negative with the good, and we still have ultimately a better quality of life than we did, again, 4,000 years ago. Even though I'm a middle class person right now, I still live much better than anybody from the hunter-gatherer times, when they had to go out and they had to work for their food, and they had to go out and search and hunt and risk their lives for their meals daily. Whereas for me, all I do is I sit at a computer all day and I do some work for someone else. I might not make millions of dollars, but I have amazing things such as an iPhone. Again, something that you couldn't conceive thousands of years ago.
Absolutely, but then, like, think about this, like, by Carl Friston's, idea of anxiety being a marker of entropy in your life. Think about all of the way in which all of these things, again, continue to create even more entropy, in the sense that a lot of the times many people don't even know how to incorporate all of these new technologies and findings and ideas properly into their lives, where we're creating yes, sure. Maybe we're creating some constraints on certain things to make them useful, but then these things create even more entropy. It seems like it's something that it's never ending. The continued multiplication of entropy that always comes out, and then like there you have like certain scientists always saying like everything tends towards entropy, and like you have to kind of like agree that like whatever you don't pay attention to and you don't tend for, that's its fate. Wouldn't you say that
So
that's the case?
I will say that the question does specify that the goal of humanity is to eventually have absolute control of the amount of entropy, but it doesn't necessarily say that we realistically expect to have absolute control of entropy. We're always constantly seeking out to control and learn more about the world. Our advancements are a result of our sharing of knowledge with one another. Especially again with social media, we're able to share great ideas such as from Carl Friston, from Jordan Peterson, and the like. And now, in spite of people maybe not knowing how to integrate this advice into their lives, they now have access to this knowledge where they can deal with things such as their anxiety, as opposed to having to deal with it on their own and with very limited knowledge. Again, with very not rural, very unadvanced. Excuse me. If they did not have access to technology, if they were in a very poor family where, again, they had to work labor jobs, they would not know how to deal with. They would not know how to advance themselves in the same way that we're able to advance ourselves, again, with the knowledge that we have in today's age and the access that we have to that knowledge.
I see. What you say then? Why does it have to be related then to an order from God in the sense that they are able to orient themselves properly? Why wouldn't you say that it's just like whatever reduces the anxiety, whatever it's able to exert some type of control over it, it's going to be able to serve just as good, rather than to have a transcendental being the thing that is guiding this purpose of being able to put the drinks in its proper order so that the entropy stops.
I would say that God and even the idea of God has such an impact that it simply surpasses any form of, not secular, but any form of minimal suppressant for anxiety that we can have. Even with medication, as much as antidepressants may help, God is the North Star. He is the compass that orients us towards the ultimate good. And because he orients us towards the ultimate good, we are facing away from all of the potential negative energy that could surround us. In spite of us being in complete darkness, if we have God in our lives, God is the singular light that is able to guide us. And even though we don't know the specific direction of that light, we can walk towards the shine, and it'll guide us eventually towards the end of the tunnel, where the anxiety starts to be reduced, as opposed to, again, we have artificial ways of dealing with anxiety, but it's simply not as good as the real thing. It's a copy of a copy of a copy, because we are God's creation, but we cannot necessarily be God in the same sense that he is.
Very much in an alignment with Peterson's conception of or his idea that he develops during Maps on Meaning, being that as you advance in the world, you find an anomaly, and if you are able to align yourself with what is true and good, then you experience positive emotion because you're able to overcome the anomaly and you grow. On the contrary, when you are not aligning with what is true and good, then you have like some type of descent or fall, and then you experience negative emotion and you continue to descend unless you change your strategy. And so very much in alignment with what he thinks, and I think it was very good, Niko, and I'm gonna get you the next time for sure, but that was a very good reply. Yeah.
I am sweating.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer, right?
Yeah,
than the time says.
All right, wonderful job, Niko, defeating that dragon. That was amazing. Let's see, Jared, how would you rate Niko?
I'm going to give Niko a 5. Now, it started off a little bit shaky in my mind, but he really grabbed me when he made the case for the fleeting nature of order. and the last two segments were excellent. So I'm going to give Niko a 5.
Greatly appreciate that, Jared.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And what about you, Niko? How would you rate yourself?
I would have to say 2. Very conservatively, 2.
2.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Well, absolutely wonderful. Now, Jared, you get the last pick. 2 topics have already been picked. The last topic is shamanism, or you can go with entropy as well again, if you have a different perspective and a different point of view that you would like to debate according to the same statement. What would you like to go with?
Oh, let's go for shamanism.
Shamanism it is then. Let's see what we got. And the statement is, shamanism, as the default religion of Homo sapiens, could also be understood as the first psychotechnology that evolved as soon as the first human became conscious. This suggests that something resembling the story of the fall took place at the very least mythologically, but likely also dramatically and materially, as psychedelics could have been the potential catalyst which is portrayed as the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil in the Bible. Would you like to be for or against this statement?
Well, I think I'll go against it.
Against it. Interesting. Okay, let me just call the dragon 1 second.
Good luck to you, Jared. You seem pretty confident, though, so it's good.
No, I know. Well, I'm glad I seem confident. I'm intimidated.
All right, Jared. Here we go. Show me what you got.
Well, I mean, it's a complex setup, but I'll tell you a few of the things that flagged me. So, one is around psychedelics could have been the potential catalyst, which is portrayed as the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil in the Bible. At least, I don't think according to shamanism, because my understanding, the shamanic tradition historically viewed psychedelics as, say, not a pure pathway to transformation. So it would have been, let's say, something that was not the intended nature. Whereas I think that it's still a pathway to transformation, and that's more of a modern perspective. But I don't think it would have been as deeply rooted in the shamanic tradition to have been viewed as equivalent to the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil in the Bible. So let's say a potential equivalency could be drawn, or you could use psychedelics as a catalyst to achieve it, but I think not as part of the sort of shamanic tradition. And then also calling it the default religion of Homo sapiens. I think it's difficult for me to connect the material world with an historical tradition. While it probably started to point towards truths, I think, there's opportunity for convergence since then. And to me, as you get closer to the current moment in time, I think the likelihood for being able to approach truth increases, given the amount of resource knowledge, collaboration at scale, collective consciousness that exists. So for me, I would view it more as a lasting narrative that holds some credibility in today's terms, but not the default religion of Homo sapiens.
I think perhaps what this statement was trying to portray by calling it the default religion is more that it's kind of like a proto-religion. It's not quite like I wouldn't call it like the truth, but I would say it default in the sense that it's consistent across several cultures, like spanning across many distant places across all over the world. But also the way that that the statement is also trying to portray the psychedelics being this type of fruit that induces the fall is because perhaps is in the same sense that when we talk about technology or about new ideas, it's a dangerous thing. It's something that you don't want to engage with a lot, but at the same time, it can perhaps be a catalyst for a lot of things that it could be good downstream if you are able to put it in this
proper place. Now, I'm not saying that psychedelics are something that should be used or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is that perhaps they were used during these traditions purely by accident and not understanding entirely what they were doing, in the sense that psychedelics actually induce a state of psychosis or schizophrenia like a state in which you're able to we would say something like experience so much meaning that the meaning itself stops becoming meaningful. And so in that sense, it disintegrates everything so much, but because by virtue of being able to experience almost everything all at once. And so in that sense, was able to provide the shamans with this type of sense of being able to link it to their ancestrals tradition, and try to bring some wisdom out of there, like the psychedelics being some type of what would you say, a type of disruptive strategy to be able to help you put on a different lens. Obviously, that's exactly why I think the statement is trying to portray it as the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil in the most primitive sense, even though this perhaps like repeats itself on several layers. But in most primitive sense, as how it might have started evolutionarily, it might have been as this psychedelics started being used as a psychotechnology to induce this altered state of consciousness, to be able to have these disruptive strategies, to be able to perceive different points of view, have a different type of perspectival knowing about what was happening in their tribes, and being able to come up with an innovative solution. Wouldn't you say that that would be a good case for trying to draw this type of parallels?
So, I mean, I think psychedelics as a route to transformation or a route to universal truths is highly possible, especially if you think about the effects that some of them have in terms of increasing openness and increasing creativity, or just the number of novel ideas you might explore and then may resonate at a very deep level. But transformations have existed throughout history without the use of psychedelics. So the fact that it's not fundamental in that sense. Now, it could be we evolved from some species that along the way relied upon psychedelics, but that would be very difficult to establish, or I don't think that's been established. So in the meantime, I continue to believe that transformation and truth can be pursued successfully without the use of psychedelics. Even if it can be pursued successfully with the use of psychedelics. So I don't see them as having that sort of deep religious connotation. To me, the religious is sort of the foundation of the value systems. And so it's also where I struggle with the idea of having, being able to call a more primitive but long-lasting set of reasonable truths the default. Because I think as we've explored human existence throughout time, the story becomes, the entropy increases, the complexity increases. You end up with an entire library corpus that is the Bible, for example. You end up with extensive scientific research and multiple schools of scientific thought around these things, all of which do point to truth in and of themselves. And so there is a resonance point with, just because there is a resonance point with simple stories doesn't mean that they're sufficiently complex to encompass a default and comprehensive religion for all human beings across all time. That's how I would. I guess for me, it's a matter of how close is shamanism to being comprehensively the default religion. And I think it's partial at best. It represents part of perhaps a universal value system, And then whether or not psychedelics need to be mentioned in that I think they're far from being a fundamental pathway to the religious. I think you can establish values and pursue growth and transformation and lead a meaningful life without the involvement of psychedelics.
Absolutely. And I don't think the statement is perhaps like trying to um, make a case for the use of psychedelics. I think it's perhaps trying to portray it, actually, the psychedelic use as something that induces a fall, not quite a type of like a technology to help ascend, but rather a psychotechnology that actually makes you fall, perhaps likely into hell, into a hell-like state. Whether you learn from that event or not. This is why I think the statement is trying to compare it with the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, because as Eve consumed from it, the consequence was the fall, and as she shared it with Adam, and so. What would you say in this sense? Like when you try to understand it as something that perhaps was in obedience, man was not supposed to eat from it unless it was commanded by God. Um, wouldn't you say that it's fair to draw that parallel in that sense when you acknowledge maybe like the dangerous aspect of it, and also the way in which, like, if you were to consume of it, you would be basically trying to achieve some type of other state of consciousness through um, earthly mechanism, so to speak, rather than to try to ascend to it through a heavenly pathway.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of analogy there, so it's difficult for me to. But I'd say I think about psychedelics as a chaos creator, and I don't see chaos as being negative, and I don't see the fall as being negative either. The fall is the source of growth. It can be physically uncomfortable when you're in a state of living in the depths, but it's from the depths that the growth occurs and transformation occurs. And so in that sense, I see psychedelics as like I say, an entropy increase, or similar to the way that I see a temperament that's high in openness and neuroticism. It's like introduce it into your life and increase the susceptibility for chaos. And if not controlled, it can create too much chaos and destroy you, similar to being highly neurotic and highly open. Or any, I mean, I imagine it's possible through a range of temperamental experiences, but I only know the one, that I experienced myself. But so I would say that I view psychedelics as a potential exposure. But if you look at the data, for example, around one of the questions earlier, which was reduction in death anxiety. And I imagine, what does that come from? And it's if it's bringing you closer to truth and what is known, and order through use, in a sense, because it's reducing the amount of entropy in practice. There's something quite extraordinary about being able to do that. By introducing chaos into the system, you're actually decreasing the amount of anxiety and feeling closer to something that brings peace rather than chaos.
Yeah, perhaps it has to do with this relation of what you're saying, like exactly emerging out of the chaos and actually coming out on the other side a little bit more prepared. Maybe in the sense of how, like, for example, dreams work, that where you're able to run a type of a scenario that might be dangerous to you, but with no entire risk to you, or how, like, we are able to experience, for example, movies or a book, in the sense that we can kind of like have this imaginal experience of what it would be like to be in that experience, and then we can learn from it without having to actually engage in the risk of it, even though obviously, like, psychedelics perhaps do come with some very implicit risks that many sometimes in this more um, what would you say, contemporary times, we tend to try not to expose so much, but even though it should be actually, while we talk about like the benefits of it, we should also emphasize the many risks. I think that you did a very good job, Jared, and you got me another
Interesting
time,
point.
but the next time, unfortunately, I'm gonna get you, man.
Nice job.
Thanks. It's so funny having a debate with a dragon.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. It's
He was
yeah.
talking about some mental illnesses there while while speaking through a dragon.
All right, I'm back.
Good to see you.
Well done, sir. That was amazing. Okay, Nico, how would you rate Jared?
I would rate it as a 4.
A 4. Fantastic. And what about you, Jared? How would you rate yourself on this one?
Yeah, I was a little thrown off with the question a little bit. I didn't feel as good about this one. I'm gonna go with a 3.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's wonderful. And so, Nico, you've had a chance to see all of the different topics from the sparring. You get one more chance. You get to redo any of those topics. You can choose the one that you did. You can choose one of the other two that Jared did, and you can take on the same perspective, or you can have a perspective completely original to yourself. This is the absolutely last sparring, and from there we're gonna go to see how we did in the points and figure out who's wearing the crown for this game at least. And so, what would you go with, Nico?
I'm gonna go with entropy again.
Entropy, absolutely. And so, the statement, you know it. Let me just call the dragon, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, I'll be ready.
Are you gonna take the same side of the argument?
No, I'm gonna take the opposite side. I have an idea of where I want to go now.
Looking forward to
At
it.
least I have a good intro to it, but I just gotta hope I can, keep on defending. Ooh, all right.
All right, Nico, show me what you got.
All right, so, the question, to have absolute control of the amount of entropy for humans, I'm going to go against this statement and say that for advancements in humanity, it's a Pareto distribution of those that produce and those that simply take and leech off of the advancements that those that have produced. In creative people, Pareto distribution, for those that don't know, it's simply 20% of the population produces 80% of the work. I believe that's generally the percentages. And because it's such a small minority of people that actually produce, in one sense creatively, but in another sense technological advancements, right? That is why it is not even the total populace that's seeking to control entropy. The mass is simply trying to benefit, and they're just trying to live their lives. They're trying to simply exist and live comfortable lives, while a small minority is trying to actually do better than the rest, not out of pride, but more so out of righteous duty that they want to pursue, that they want to increase the amount of goodness and good things in the world, as opposed to, again, for every one righteous person, let's say there's 10 people that simply want to exist. They just want to be comfortable. They don't want to give more than they get.
Okay, so forgive me if I ask a little bit about this. So, how does the Pareto distribution between the well, would you say it like the producers and those who are able to consume of the product relate to the concept of entropy being subdued in a way?
Mhm. So, a lot of people are simply okay with that entropy. people who produce are trying to take something that is chaotic to most people that they don't understand, that they're simply not of that level. They don't have the level of knowledge to kind of control. Um, let's say something such as chemistry, right? Chemistry is a very complex subject, and it's a very precise subject that only a set few can truly seem to control. They can control the amounts of materials that they can use to make compounds and to observe the reactions of. Because if you're even so slightly off, it won't reap the same results as previous tests. So I say this relates to entropy because let's go with the idea of chemistry as chaos, right? Again, most people don't understand most of chemistry. There's a very set few amount of people that have dedicated their lives to understanding a topic such as chemistry. And because these few people have dedicated their lives to understanding and to trying to control and trying to make this topic beneficial for the rest of society, my argument is simply that the question states that it's the goal of humanity, and I see it as the goal of humanity as a whole, that it pertains to me, you, to Jared. However, to me it seems like because the Pareto distribution shows that there's only a few amount of people that are willing to dedicate their lives to controlling entropy, that the rest, by sheer numbers, show that the goal of humanity is not to control entropy. It's simply the goal of a small amount of people. Does that make sense?
I see what you mean. Okay. So, because humanity is not united as a whole, and it has not found an actual proper united narrative under which they can all like understand each other and like organize themselves towards doing so, then it cannot, by definition, be the goal of humanity because they have not established it as so.
Mm-hmm. And it's not even just being united. It's also just the fact that because they can produce in different disciplines. Some people can produce creatively. Some people can produce scientifically. But they're simply not united in that they want to follow what they want to follow. And if it happens to be productive, generally that's good. But a lot of times people just want to do what they want to do. If they want to just dedicate their lives to drug abuse, to alcohol abuse, video games, a lot of people would take that path had they not been given some sort of exterior factor, such as, let's say, Christianity or worshiping God or some sort of righteous alignment. Without any sort of external influence out of their lives, they would simply just prefer to be lazy and to not do anything more than they feel that they would be rewarded for.
I see, but there's a sense in which, like, even though people have different interests and stuff like that, what makes us such an interesting animal as humans is the fact that, we are a specialist but generalist, all combined at the same time. Because, we can all specialize in an area that it's appealing to us and it's like interesting to each one of us as individuals, but at the same time cooperate in the sense that we can all end up benefiting from it. So to the extent that I don't have to learn how to make my clothes, I can outsource it to one of my fellow humans who is an expert on how to make clothes, for example. And then I can apply my perhaps my expertise, my specialization towards bringing it to trade with other humans. And so the technology of trading has actually made it so that we can organize ourselves towards at least something resembling a shared interest. But then over that as well, even the example of the people that you're talking about that might not be, let's say, as motivated as others, people that might want to follow the lazy path and stuff like that. Wouldn't you say, though, that the way that the world is set up anyways will actually show them
or would actually put them through a lot of suffering to the extent that they're not bearing their responsibility that they're supposed to bear so that they can be a blessing to themselves and those around them. Yes, they can trick themselves and lie to themselves saying like, oh, I do whatever I want whenever I want to, and that's how I live a good life. But then ultimately, even though they might not have a proper sense of the right goal to pursue, the right goal to pursue would be to be useful not only to themselves but also to those around them. And so even if it's not completely clear to some people that are not actually actively thinking on how they can actually be um, of service to others and to themselves, um, it's still something that it's kind of like an implicit goal, wouldn't you say?
Hmm. Well, I would say that there is. I'm going to try and build this up, but that there is some sense of selfishness that's in it, right? So even though I could outsource the my clothing to be made to someone else, I'm doing it out of my interest. I'm not doing it to support their business necessarily. I'm doing it because I need clothing, and I happen to have money to be able to purchase that sort of product. And when I go to work for at a job, my goal is to make money so that I can make money to purchase the things that I want. But I'm not doing it out of charity for others. I'm doing it simply for my sake. And there are, of course, those people that they're willing to be freely giving in their daily life and other aspects. Just simply apart from buying the product, they can also, we have tipping culture that's really prevalent in restaurants. And that's where people want to feel generous, so they'll give extra that they don't really have to. They have an abundance in themselves that they might not be so upset about departing with. However, let me see. My apologies. I had a second point, and it's eluded me. However, I think it's coming back.
It's okay.
I lost it. All right, let's see. So. Oh man, it's really gone. Okay.
Okay, let's go with that first idea. Let me know if you wanna jump in like with your second idea if it ever
Thank
comes
you.
back. Like just jump through. But let's say yes, definitely we're somewhat motivated out of selfishness to a certain extent, and especially in the sense that like I would say perhaps maybe what would you say the financial or I don't want to say okay, let's say like the capitalist structure is set up, it's kind of like it's inviting to this type of like sense of like my property, my way of like preserving my own thing, and that to an extent I don't think it's entirely fair to say that it's entirely selfish in its core, because the best deal is one in which everybody wins. You know what I mean? Why? Because obviously I want to continue to make a trade with you, even if it's entirely out of self-interest. If I am smart enough and I'm sophisticated enough, I will know that building a reputation with the people that I'm trading with is going to be of one of the most important things that I ought to do to be able to continue to strive to do business together. And so, to that extent, there is kind of like a sense of whether it is conscious or unconscious, a sense of perhaps uh, following a shared morality so that we can be of service to one another. And so that this is what I'm trying to argue, why I'm trying to argue that perhaps this type of like a goal of trying to like subdue entropy is kind of like an implicit goal. It's not something more explicit in which we're all like saying like, hey, let's all organize as one body, even though that would be, I think, perhaps much easier, but to the extent that not everybody is entirely on board with it, or that they don't understand it, like how you said, perhaps it's something more implicit in the way in which we engage with it.
So, my previous point did come back to me, so I'll lead with that in saying that in the course, Jordan Peterson had mentioned that in World War One, the armed forces, I forget which country, but that they had done a psychometric study in which that about 10% of the population was simply useless to any military endeavors, even though the military is heavily motivated to, make use of everybody that's possible. And so this 10%, right? We can cut it out of the entire 100%. This will be 10% of the population that's just simply not useful for the military. And then as for the rest of the 90%, now the 90% has the choice of whether or not to, again, participate and to use their power and their intelligence for good, or they can simply choose not to do that. So out of the 100% of the population that we have, 10% is already cut from, let's say, the bar of being useful. So now, because it's an even smaller number, again, like this, it's a matter of the amount of people that are willing to choose to do the right thing and choose to decrease the amount of entropy by contributing to the populace and to improvements in humanity. Now, wow. Now, it is simply a logical conclusion that without without an overarching narrative such as God that influences the people would simply, as let's say in a vacuum, humanity would not proceed to help one another out. Because, again, logically speaking, if we only have this singular life in which we grow up and we die, it is simply the logical solution to make use of whatever hedonistic pleasures that I can in order to make my life the most pleasurable and forget about everybody else. Because even though I could contribute to decreasing entropy, it's going to be at the cost of my desires and my whims. Just for the sake of helping other people in the hopes that it'll help future generations. But you have to be a hopeful person, and being a hopeful person, being someone who has that sort of righteous value in you, is a hard thing to deal with. That's why in the Christian narrative, Jesus Christ was the sacrifice, even though he was being the perfect person, God and man in one. He was crucified under the worst possible conditions. He suffered betrayal. He suffered humiliation. He suffered physical torture in spite of him being the ideal and the perfect human being. And anybody that follows suit with Jesus Christ, they also suffered similar fates where they were also crucified or they were humiliated or they were outcasted. And if Christianity is seen as, as the question says, if Christianity or God is seen to be the righteous ideal, and in order to decrease entropy, it's simply logical that those that prefer not to suffer would choose to live their lives apart from decreasing entropy. Does that make sense?
So there is a sense in which, like, if I understand it correctly, you're trying to also say that, in order to reduce, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm understanding in your argument is that the sense in which we reduce entropy sometimes is by taking on entropy on ourselves as a burden. And then as when we do that, that is when we reduce entropy for the most amount of people for the most amount of time in a system. And so which Christ being the highest example. And so because of that reason, if you do want to avoid suffering, what you're going to want to avoid logically would be not to commit to that type of let's say a narrative in a way. But wouldn't you say though that
suffering, though it's kind of something that is inherent to existence. Like, like I think the existentialists have made a very good case for this being this being what it's actually going on, because regardless of what it is that you are experiencing, you're still going to have to suffer, whether it is going to be taking on voluntary responsibility or just suffering because the anomalies continue to crash on you. And so, to a sense, I don't think perhaps it's not something that you can really escape, whether you are engaged with it or not. Now, it's another question if people are able to understand that or not. But I also think that, the argument of, say, for example, being also a Pareto distribution in the case of the least amount of, let's say, productive people, all the people that are not trainable, for example, in the case of the army. Well, wouldn't you say, though, that they maybe perhaps, even though they don't have a very high IQ or a very high intelligence by psychometric testing, wouldn't you say that perhaps they have other different roles in which they can also contribute to, like society and towards like this same sort of larger plan that God has for all of us, and also to the extent that obviously not everybody is called, or perhaps everybody is called to make the same sacrifice as Christ, but to the extent that not everybody is able to do so, God also provides grace and forgiveness by the same measure. So, wouldn't you say that in this case, it's not? Would it still be tenable to think of entropy of the attempt towards reducing entropy as something that, at least implicitly, is not the thing that is being sort of imposed on us or commanded on us to do, whether it is, like, whether we know it consciously or not, we still have to contend with like the implications of ignoring it or engaging with it and bearing the responsibility.
So I'll start off by saying that I will concede that in that study with the military, it is specifically that 10% cannot be used for military purposes. So yes, they can be used for other societal purposes, whether it's, maybe some more like lower level items that they can actually undertake. The military has likely a higher standards than what they're able to produce. So I'll concede that point. However, the assumption is that suffering helps humanity advance, period. That the assumption is that every dragon has a treasure, but for one, you have to absolutely have that belief and have that faith that dragons do have treasures, and then you can undertake those challenges in order to surpass them. But like in the lecture, if you take it, if it is thrust upon you, as with a lot of people, that if this challenge comes to you and you're simply not prepared for it and you're not willing to take it on voluntarily, you're just left out of luck and you're going to be left in a worse state than you were previously because, again, you're not willing to undertake it. They have I think psychophysiologically like objective differences in the way that your body reacts to those challenges, whether or not you take it voluntary or not. And I'll say too that oh man, I don't know what my brain is doing. Because again, so suffering. I would argue also that suffering and entropy kind of go hand in hand. Everybody's lives I would consider as, some sort of garden that you're maintaining, right? You're trying to keep out all the snakes. You're trying to make sure it's a nice garden. And I believe Jordan Peterson had once said that a garden with a snake in it is actually a better garden because it's more well maintained. But if you are not expecting any snakes to come in, you're going to have issues befall you that you just simply weren't expecting because, again, you think, my life is perfect. It's fine. I'm not going to encounter anything that's challenging or anything that's new or surprising in a negative way. And then when it actually does come upon you, again, that's where it a challenge that that comes upon you involuntarily, and then you're simply not ready for it, and you're not prepared to take it on, as opposed to someone who makes that, who instills that in themselves to have a drive and motive to overcome those challenges. And it's simply a harder feat to accomplish, to have that drive again, to overcome the chaos slash entropy, as opposed to just letting it befall you and just saying, you know what, that's it. I'm not good enough anyways. I'm not going to take this challenge on. It's going to overtake me, but I've simply given up.
I see. So your argument is about this kind of like separation of two types of people. The type of people that are willing to take on like the challenge and like bearing their responsibility, and the type of people that perhaps they're not quite receptive to bearing the responsibility. They're not quite prepared. They're not quite engaging with like trying to improve themselves, and so that they can be useful for themselves and for those around them. And so because of this sort of difference in way of thinking, this sort of like this united narrative that these two like sides or bands have, it's very hard for us to be able to commit to saying that this is like the goal of humanity, because everybody have their own particular goals according to whatever it is that they are willing to engage with or not. I see that argument, Nico, and I think it's a very fair argument to say the least. And I think you got me this time, but I'm gonna get you next time. No!
Ooh boy, was actually harder than I expected.
Well, you chose to debate yourself effectively,
Yeah.
right? So,
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's a tough task.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, I'm back. That was very good, Mr. Niko. And so, tell me, Jared, how would you rate him?
Well, I took the argument, but I'm going to be tough. I think I'm going to give him a 3 for this one, and it's because, and I told him he was arguing with himself, and I'm still more convinced by Niko number 1 on this argument than I am by the second case. And I thought the dragon did fairly well also.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, Jared. Thank you so much. And so, Niko, how would you rate yourself on this one?
I'm gonna go with a 3.
3, absolutely. And so, that brings us to the final score is, it's a tie. 22 points,
Wow.
both of you. And so with that, we're going to do a dice roll. Both of you pick a number from 1.
Have you had a tie yet? Is this the first one?
This is the first ever tie in the history of Dragon Slayers. So this is going to be a fun one. So you get to pick, each one of you get to pick 3 numbers out of a dice. And then I'll throw it. However, whatever it lands is going to get 2 extra points. And that's going to determine the winner of this episode of Dragon Slayers. And it's going to obviously claim the crown, at least until next game, for sure.
Should we do odds and evens, Niko? You can take whatever you want.
Yeah, no, we can do odds and evens for sure. Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna go odds.
Okay.
Odds? Absolutely. And so here it goes. I'm just gonna drop it and then hold on. I just got all the way on the ground. Where is it? All right. I'm back. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay, it actually landed on 6. So that makes
Jared.
the winner for Dragon Slayers. Okay, so this is the leaderboard. And so, Jared, you ended up with 24 points. So you're actually on the lead of the whole game right now.
All right.
And Niko, you ended up with 22, so you're the runner-up from him because you're like the latest participant. And so going from there, depending however the points start landing, and the more times you come back, you're gonna rack up your points. And so we'll see, you know, how the points start to land. But so the king of PA right now is Jared, and obviously this will be at least for now until next time. And thank you so much, guys, for, you know, joining me in this. And I had lots of fun, and I hope to see you guys again for the next one for sure.
Thanks, Juan.
Yeah. Thank you, Juan.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Nico.